And
So,
and just to that point, so this is the learning management system that's part of the one-to-one initiative, and we will be having a Facebook Live for our stakeholders publicly tomorrow to kind of really push through and discuss this in greater detail. But I think the best way, I think the analogy is, this is the kind of thing where, you know, you have your cell phone, your device, but you have to put apps and things on your cell phone operating system, and version of that where we will be placing all of our things. And so we will have a whole, if you adopt this, we will have a whole series of professional development and support for our community. We have identified multiple channels: parents, students, teachers, and administrators, and each of them will have their own catalog of professional development around not just the device, but the learning management system that's married to it, so that they can access the online content.
This is still not the actual curriculum. We still have one more piece. After this is the device, and now we have the management system, and then later we'll have content. So for the second phase of our endeavor to limit the, well, I think it's sort of, not that it is in response, but it addresses the concerns raised by the Rickard student who wrote the letter to the editor about, why do I have to go to all these different places to get all these different things, right? So, are there questions? I think I saw Ms. Wood. Did you have a question or comment?
no, obviously I'm happy about this. I just was looking for a little more explanation so people understood what it meant, and I think they've done that, so thank you.
Any questions? This is a big step, right? There are people that who are not who are not.
Step. Yes, this is a great thing as we continue with our reimagining Leon County schools, our Forward Leon program. Yeah, I just want
to make sure we weren't just, you know.
this is $150,000 a year investment that we'll park all of our content on. So this is the devices, then the platform, then the content, and we're off and running.
Okay.
A lot of professional development.
We've all talked about this a lot. For those of you who may be listening, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't, the enthusiasm wasn't lost, because we've been working hard to get here. And I thank you, Ms. Gregory, Mr. Williamson, and all of your team for the good work that you've done to get us to this point in rapid fire timing. So thank you for that. Is there a motion and a second? Move approval by Ms. Wood. Second by Mr. Jones. Any objection? What are you laughing at? Show it unanimously approved. I'm sorry.
Now I'm on.
That takes us to 19.07, the Value Adjustment Board, and I'll take the full responsibility for this being late, sort of. We were asked to, and thank you, Ms. Striplin, for your continuing to serve on the Value Adjustment Board as our school board representative on that board.
Yay.
To you for willing to do that. We needed we needed a citizen to represent the school district, and the person has to be a local business owner. They also have to be the business has to be located within the school district, and there are other parameters around that. So it took us a little while to find somebody who was willing to take this on, but I found a very enthusiastic and excited person through the Chamber of Commerce, and he is a parent. He served on the SAC for way back in the day for Conley, when Conley first opened. And then now he's a dad of students at Kate Sullivan and Cobb. And he is a local real estate owner, and his name is Brian Seeley, and he has graciously agreed to serve. And so I just need for you all to vote to approve this nomination. Is there a question?
There is. I move acceptance of this nomination.
Moved by Ms. Bowen, second by Mr. Jones.
Oh, I got in there.
All in favor?
Aye.
No objection. Show it unanimously approved. Thank you. I don't see anything. Yeah. I'm sorry. She's muted. I can't hear her. Anyway.
You're muted.
Number 20, information items. I don't see anything listed. Or 21, board liaisons. Takes us to item 22, Mr. Superintendent.
Briefly, Madam Chair. I don't know if you all had an opportunity to watch Governor DeSantis speak at a press conference shortly before our meeting started at 5 p.m. He made some comments that kind of along the lines that we've been saying. That Governor Ron DeSantis likened upcoming budget cuts to the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. Now, I didn't watch Game of Thrones. I have to go home and ask my wife, Christy, exactly what the Red Wedding was, but something tells me that wasn't a good thing. But I'll find out. Anything with red is usually not good. It says lots of spending is going to die, including some of his own agenda items. The state has lost hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue during the coronavirus pandemic and expecting the outlook to get worse. Be asked to hold back a portion of their budgets. So this just reaffirms what we've been doing. And while we are treading very, very cautiously not to overextend ourselves. And then finally, I'd like to say to my staff, I'm sorry and thank you. Usually this time of the summer is a time where they get a chance to wind down with their family and go on a little brief vacation before we crank things up for next year. This will not be one of those summers. I've been with our school system a long time. This will be the most active summer by far that I've ever seen. We have a lot of work to do before the opening of schools in August. And I'd like to thank my staff for all of their tireless efforts. What he said about Dina McAllister, and it's not just about Dina. I get text messages from all my assistant superintendents, our CFO, everybody in this school system is working tirelessly to get it right for August. And I just want to thank them publicly for all of their efforts and energy. And at the end of the day, to Ms. Wood's point, we may have to agree to disagree on some of the things that we're going to do or not do, but it won't be because we didn't put a lot of time and effort into hearing from all of our constituents and all of our stakeholders. And at the end of the day, we want to get it right. We want to do right by our students, by our parents, by our families, and for our community. So to my staff, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, and the board, I'm sure, would concur with the gratitude and looking back all the way to the missed spring break and looking ahead to the missed summer. We are where we are, and that is most unfortunate, but we appreciate your dedication and commitment to this district and your tireless work. All right,
absolutely.
That's to the final item of the evening that Ms. Bowen would like to raise, and we had a lengthy conversation about this yesterday. I don't want to shorten that for the viewing public, but I will recognize Ms. Bowen to initiate the conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. We did have a lengthy conversation, and it was a good conversation yesterday about this item. I will tell you, I thought it important to bring this item before the board because for the past few weeks, I have been watching many of the current events that have been taking place throughout the United States, actually throughout the world, when it comes to justice kinds of issues. And I wondered what we were doing as a school system for our children when they would be returning to school, having witnessed all that we had witnessed in the last 4 weeks about justice and values and civil rights. And I sat there in my kitchen just kind of glued to the TV set and called to see what we were doing and how we were going to stay 2 or 3 steps ahead of what I think could be a very hot spot for us in the coming months when our children come back. And so it was with that in mind that I decided to bring this up in the form of a question. What are we doing as a system to be ready for our students when they come back? I saw this as a hot spot, and I saw this as being the kind of thing that could have caused some racial strife, and certainly don't want to be a part of that. So I brought it to the board, and I have some thoughts that also pushed me to bring it to the board. as a mother of Black children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, a public servant who is sworn in to provide educational services for the district in the face of fair and equitable kinds of duties are in that manner. I just thought I needed to speak. And in speaking, I didn't want to speak alone. So I brought it to the board to see what you were thinking. In my mind, systemic and institutional racism cannot be denied in our society. It is incumbent upon us to be vigilant about establishing and monitoring and evaluating our policies and our procedures to ensure that the educational and work environment embraces diversity, and actively I shall outcomes for all who participate in the Leon County School District. And I continue to wonder, our parents want to know what we're doing, and where are we going to place that kind of information so that they can see. Due to COVID-19, I have not been able to participate in the recent protests. However, in my own history of being a victim of racial injustice and discrimination causes me to be aligned with those who have put a light on the issue of racial injustice. And so in my mind, as history unfolds, I want us not to become tone deaf. We don't need to be tone deaf, but we should be the architects of our new normal. And we're talking about our new reimagining the school system. And so I felt and feel that it is our duty to provide equal opportunity and education and employment for those students and those individuals who are part of the Leon County school system. And so that being said, I'm looking forward to working with this board together to examine our policies and procedures and practices and make some reforms where we need to, so that we are not part of the problem, but we're part of the solution. And so in my mind, given that this is a chronic situation that we're dealing with, it's not going to go away. It's going to be with us for a while. So I hope that there are none of us standing behind the curtain until it's all over and it's all done, but we will continue to be that Team Leon that has stepped up to face the challenges that our system and our students have been, how should I say, bothered with. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to ask, what concrete and verifiable steps will we have in making certain that we will remedy any of the adverse kinds of positions that might present our children? So what's our plan? What are we going to do? How will we let parents know? I think I said on yesterday that those children that left us some 4 months ago will be the same children, but they won't be thinking the same way. So what are we doing to make certain that their voices are heard, that our teachers are trained so that they will know how to deal with any and all questions that might deal with diversity, racism, intolerance? So to provide that kind of facilitative context so that our kids can know that we mean it when we talk to them about caring. I also looked at our mission statement and our vision statement, and I threw that in as I thought about this. There are so many isms and challenges that are happening that I think we need to model the kind of behavior for our system. That was said, I think, on yesterday, and I believe we left this in a way that each one of us were going to come up with a part of a statement or a statement, and give it to Dr. Gale so that we could eventually fashion a statement that would be on our website with our stance of how we value each student and the dignity and worth of every individual. And so in my mind, this is pretty large and pretty big. I'm hopefully going to hear where you are. But that was the reason, or those were the reasons that I mentioned it. I have gotten with Dr. Gale since yesterday, gotten with her. I've spoken with her, and I know that several of you have sent in to her possible statements that could be used in the fashioning of our final statement that will be up on the website by Thursday. I believe the superintendent said that by Thursday, that would perhaps be a good time. So we didn't bring anything tonight. We want this to be carefully and well thought out and have it be a statement from Team Leon and just from not one board member of Team Leon. So that's how we're leaving. I guess that's an introduction. I suspect that there will be many other statements. And so that I don't follow this, or I don't see where this is going, or folk in the community, we have all seen this unless we've been asleep at the wheel, and we've been known to be out in front. So I want us to take care of those hot spots and to be prepared for our students and our teachers, and have the community know that we want them to be a part, but certainly we're taking the leadership educationally for our children. So I offer that as a fairly lengthy introduction in what I know you all will want to talk about in just a few moments. Comments?
Mr. Jones?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought I saw you raise your hand. Did you have a comment? Would you want to add to the conversation?
I just thought we were clear that we were going to have something to vote on tonight, and that we would, and whatever we were going to do would be satisfied tonight to share to our public, because we said time was of the essence. I did not know that this would be a continuing work in progress, but I defer to a senior member of the school board, but that's not the way I understood it yesterday, but I'm down for whatever.
Well, I understand we were going to ask the superintendent and staff to work on a statement on behalf of the Leon County School District, is the way I recall. Anybody else?
Yes, Madam Chair, and that statement would be prepared and disseminated by the end of the week. That was what was discussed yesterday.
Now, this next statement is probably going to get me into a little trouble, but I put on a little weight and I think I'll be able to handle it. The statement will be coming from all of us, not just one grandmother who would be me. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Thank you for one, absolutely. Okay, because I think that just serves, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. I love how Daryl put it so eloquently, the most senior member of the board. You have more experience than the rest of us wrapped up together on this board and in this school district. And you brought this up yesterday, and we all had wonderful comments and great additions. Every single one of us had a great addition and a thought in support of the statement that I know that we need to craft.
All right.
I know that our staff is working around the clock, and to have them put something together as thoughtful, this might be the most thoughtful statement we put together as a board, and to ask them to do that in less than one day, I think was asking too much of them. And this group is not short on opinion. We'll go ahead and just throw that out there. We're not short on opinion, and we're not short on bravery to speak our opinion. And so I dare say, no matter what they come up with, one of us is going to have something to edit, delete, change.
Absolutely.
Add. You know, this is a challenge.
Yes, it is.
But
I love you for it.
we
Yes.
stand with you. This whole group stands with you in that we know that systemic racism is a problem in our country. We know that it's a problem in our community, and we know that it's a problem in the world we live in. And I know that we stand together and that we want to voice our support for change. And
All right.
And so I think you threw the ball out there yesterday, and we all caught it, and we're all with you. But to put it in words and to have something that is agreeable, this is going to be challenging.
Yes, that's fine.
But I know that we want to do it, and we want to do it now. And I don't, I think superintendent, they're doing the best they can to try to get something, by the end of the week.
I agree. Right.
But we did say we would send in our thoughts, and again, just by us speaking, we're not remaining silent. We are speaking. It's just more difficult to put it into words for a group this size. So I hear you, and I wish we could have it tonight. And I think I look forward to what we craft,
Right.
by the end of the week.
You know what, Alva? I'm sorry. You know what, Ms. Striplin? Am I still on? I guess. I really appreciate that. And I will tell you why. When I was going through all of, I could relate to what was happening, perhaps, and others could not. I received a phone call. And the phone call said, in the middle of all of this stuff that was going on, in a very calm but slightly emotional voice, and it said, "Hey, how are you doing? How are you holding up, Joy?" Okay. And that phone call lifted me to the position that I could continue to press forward. And this phone call made me feel in a way that I and we are not in this work together. And that's who we are on this board. I hope you follow what I'm saying. And so I appreciate what you're saying, and I look forward to it, because I think it's going to take that kind of concern and that kind of humanity to get us where we need to be over the next few months, when our children come back and sit in classrooms, perhaps, Mr. Superintendent, with teachers that may not know how to comfortably talk with them about what they've seen and how they felt. And I can understand that. It is not an easy conversation to have. It isn't on any side of the race here, but it has to happen. I think it must happen for us to get where we need to be. So I needed to offer that. It was just so very uplifting. And so you all may want to help me thank Katie's mom for doing that, because Katie's mom had walked with me long enough to know that Joy must be hurting. My friend is hurting. And so I'm going to call and check on her. And that lifted me in a way that I will never forget. Are y'all feeling me now? Other folk out in the community may not, but I think you see what I'm saying. And so as long as we can keep that kind of concern and care and walk alongside each other and understand that it's not the pretty words, it's the action. And this is the last thing I'm going to say, Mr. Superintendent. When I was first married, DD, I wanted to hear from my husband all the time, "I love you." He was a big guy. He didn't have a whole lot of words, Mr. Jones, and I wanted him, big football player, "I love you, baby. I love you, baby." And I didn't get that often. So one day he said to me, "Baby, pretty words fly like the birds when they hear winter call. Just to say you love me doesn't mean a thing at all." So if we love these children, and if we love what we're doing, I just believe that we're going to be able to walk side by side, shoulder to shoulder, to do the best for all of our children. I'm done.
Yeah. May I say something?
Ms. Wood.
The thing you just said is so profound, Joy, that I think in my skin and my white privilege and something that I'm
Yep.
trying to
Yep.
understand and evaluate every single day. When you're born with something, you don't even know that you've got a privilege that other people didn't get. And that's a lesson a lot of us are trying to really synthesize right now and bring understanding. And the thing about recognizing people's pain, I think if we all can start the school year with just that, with everybody saying, we recognize your pain and we feel you feel your pain as much as we can.
Right, yes.
And of the children and the teachers can say that to the children, and we can start a dialogue based in love.
Must happen.
And that's what we have to do as leaders, is to lead with love and to lead with action and to look at our policies and all those things that maybe we need to change and really have a good thorough vetting of that. But also last year we put aside some money that I'm afraid got sidelined into teaching nonviolent communication, restorative justice, all those things. We have to make sure that we don't let
right.
Let COVID take all the attention, because right now we're trying to figure out how to get school started. But there's a very important other thing we have to focus on. Months of COVID, but 400 years of racial discrimination in our country.
Absolutely. Oh, so I didn't even go
there. It's going to take longer to figure out this than it is to figure out how we do school with COVID, but it's super important, and I don't want it, and I don't think any of us want it to take any sort of sideline, because it's we have a lot to do. The thing,
you know, the other thing I was going to say, this board has been so forward thinking. When the children had to go home 4 months ago, and we discovered that there were not lunches for them, we found a way, collaborating with others, to make sure that there was food and wherever they needed it to be. Dr. Gale and staff and the superintendent were out highways and byways passing out food. And that was a great thing. And when we discovered that many of our children did not have the notebooks, I call them, you know, the computers, we found a way to make sure that those children had them. And when it looked like they didn't have the internet access, that superintendent found a way to get those buses where those children needed it so that they could have access. And so in my mind, there was the food pandemic, there was the technology pandemic, and now there is this pandemic that is as chronic as I think those others were, if not more so. So I look forward to what we're going to do, because it's not going to go away. I'm done. Thank you.
All right. As I said, we had a lengthy conversation about this yesterday, and we'll have, I'm sure, more when the statement does come out. Mr. Superintendent, did you have?
If I may, Madam Chair, and thank you for those comments, Ms. Bowen. I was wondering if anyone was going to be brave enough to follow you, and Ms. Wood did, and did a very good job. Yes, we will be compiling all the stuff that you guys sent. It was very heartfelt into one document on behalf of our team, LCS, by the end of the week. And then we're going to come forward with an action plan. What will the fall look like for our children? Because the world is a much different place than when they left us on March.
Absolutely.
In many ways. And we have to be ready to deal with that. I know Mr. Jones and I both spoke at the event down in the Bond community shortly after this happened. And I've seen things in this community I've never seen before. And I think I am really cautiously optimistic that it's going to be different this time. But it starts with us. It starts with education, the education of our children. But I do want to let parents and families know that if their children are even this summer experiencing difficulty and they need help, reach out to your school. Our principals are there. We have resources even over the summer to get them counseling, to get them the help they need. They don't have to wait until the fall. So please help spread that word. If we have this village and those counselors are ready now to intervene with those children that are experiencing sleepless nights or nightmares or whatever the case may be by the things, the horrific acts they've seen on television and all they've had to deal with over the course of the last 4 months. So we're not waiting until the fall. If they need help, help is there. So please encourage your constituents to reach out to their neighborhood school to get the help they need. But we do have work yet to be done. Like your husband said, words are words. And they are a first step, but they will not be the last step. The most important step is what actions and what things do we put in place for our staff members and our children when they return to us in August. And that's a work in progress right now. Like I said, we have a lot of work to do on many fronts, things that we never would have expected during the summer of 2020. But I know we are all up for the task, and we're gonna get it right. We're going to get it right because our children deserve nothing less. So thank you so much for your heartfelt words. Also, I need to say, I believe when Mr. Dawson was presenting, we had some audio difficulties during that time. So I apologize to members of the community if you did not hear all of Mr. Dawson's presentation about our property and casualty insurance. If you have any questions, you can call Kim Banks' office with any questions about property and casualty, those folks in the community. And then finally, on our devices, we are still in the process of final negotiations with the companies we are purchasing them from and contracting with. Opal's been an intricate part of that. Thank you, Opal, for your tireless efforts, and so is Ms. Rasmussen. But we do not have an action item, but we are working feverishly to get that done here over the course of the next several days. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
All right.
Ms. Rasmussen, would you thank Katie's mom for me, please? Thank you.
All right, everybody, on that important note.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Stripling. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, last minute. I didn't realize this had been pulled from the agenda and wanted to see if we could get some information. A proposal from KCCI here in town locally, the Community Catalyst Group, to build at their own expense a bike park at Sable Palm Elementary. And it was an educational bike park. And it was so well thought out, a huge benefit for this community. Incorporated the school, and the children, and a recreational activity. And it was something I was really excited about when I got more information from them. In a community that it's just going to be such a benefit to have these children outside and moving and engaging. And so it got pulled from the agenda. So I was wondering what happened and when we might expect to see it back. Cause I know I think the shovels were in their truck and they were ready to go and beautify even a piece of concrete that has just been sitting there, just an eyesore, and turn it into not only something beautiful and beneficial for the community, but also usable and a health benefit to the children. So what happened?
So that item has not made it through the approval tree yet, Ms. Stripling. To your point, very thankful to Betsy Couch and that organization for wanting to make this happen. First, before we do it, we're going to re-asphalt it. I don't know if you've been by Sable Palm and looked. We're going to spend $65,000 to put brand new asphalt before they come in and paint the bike and paint the course and do their work. But I can assure you it will be on the agenda for July the 14th. In the meantime, we're finishing the bids on totally resurfacing out of our capital outlay budget, resurfacing that play area, and then they're going to lay the track on top of it. It doesn't make any sense to do it while the track is, it's just, it needs to be resurfaced, and we're going to resurface it, and then they'll come in after. So it'll be back on there July the 14th.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Johns?
have we made it to new concerns on our agenda?
Well, I think we're just about to adjourn, so please, by all means, carry on.
Keeping in mind what Dr. Bowen has described and what has been, I dare say, her continuing references to cultural awareness and historical awareness. Since I joined the board, I've also heard Ms. Bowen talk about what are we doing to archive our history found here in the district. And I know that we talked about it pre-COVID, about how we were going to make sure that we were able to capture the stories of the schools and the names of the schools that we have here in our community. It is to that end, and with that thought in mind, and again, I thank our senior most board member of our school board for enlightening and awakening in me an interest in what I would dare say would be the knitting of the history and legacy of the original Lincoln High School and our current Lincoln High School now. Mr. Superintendent, I want you to know that I listen to you carefully, and I watch and I hear the pride that you feel as a third generation Leon High School graduate. And you talk about how your mom went there and your grandparents went there. When we went from segregation, from a segregated school system to an integrated school system, the former Lincoln High School, the original Lincoln High School was closed. And then some years later, a new Lincoln High School was opened. And I'm concerned, I think it would be a fantastic opportunity for us in this community to be repairers of the breach, such that no different than you talk about how previous generations of your family went to Lincoln High School, a Lincoln High School freshman can now say, my grandparents also went to Lincoln. And so what I have done, and they will come back to us, is I've asked Ms. Altamise Barnes, the former alumnus of Lincoln High School and the president of the Riley House. I've also reached out to my predecessor, Mrs. Maggie Lewis Butler, who was her first job in our district was as a faculty member at Lincoln High School. And I have reached out to our former assistant superintendent, who was the last student body president of the original Lincoln High School, Dr. Marvin Henderson. And I've asked them to join Dr. Alan Birch, the current principal of Lincoln High School. I've spoken to all four of them, and all four of them are excited about what would be the opportunity to bring both Lincoln High Schools together, such that in 1975, but Lincoln will have been founded in 1869. And thus we would maintain its history as one of three freedmen high schools that were created following emancipation. And so that they would then be the repository and the custodian of what has been a storied tradition that has educated African-American people up until 1969, when that school closed. And so they'll be bringing recommendations back to us about how we can knit that. It will be for us to approve. But I'm excited at that opportunity. And as we talk about how Black lives matter, well, Black history matters, and the Black history that is found in our district, for us to embrace it, protect it, and preserve it, I think will go a long way in this community to show how we as a district put a premium on our stories. And so I just wanted to make you aware of that as one of my new concerns. And I followed the advice of my colleague, Roseanne Wood, who says, when you have these ideas, Daryl, do the homework in advance and then come and talk to the board. And so that is what I have done.
Well, I think it's a wonderful
Madam
idea,
Chair?
Mr. Jones. Go ahead, Ms. Bowen, then I'll respond.
Ms. Bowen.
Okay. I wish I had done all of the homework about this idea. It's related, Mr. Jones. After Bible study the other day, I was on the phone with a Miss Lou Banks, who attended Lake McBride Elementary School way out Bannerman Road. And there is an interest in that community preserving that history about that school. As a matter of fact, they wanted to have a big May Day celebration, and it came up. So I think that there are other schools and other communities that would also feel a need to preserve this kind of history along with that of that Lincoln High School, and that has been an idea that has been bantered about for a good while. And so to make those kind of connections, and I need to do just a little bit more homework, but I do have names of individuals, and there's another school out Highway 20. All of this we can get together a little bit later, but to keep the history alive and the value and the pride of these folk who were educated here in Leon County and now who want to join with us in this new re-imaging of Leon County schools, I think it could be just a wonderful thing to do under the leadership of this board and this superintendent at that time. So thank you, Mr. Jones, for just reminding me of that. I'd forgotten it. I'm done.
Madam Chair, all of you probably know that I spent 32 years of my professional career at the original Lincoln High School. And
Yes.
I always felt it was such a privilege to walk on the hallowed grounds. I really did. And we had a reunion when Bill Mumford was the superintendent, and so many people in Tallahassee have so much love and respect,
Absolutely.
the kind of education, the kind of personal care they received at that school. And, you know, I was lucky enough to know Nick Nims when he was a principal, and Vern Glenn and Aquilina Howell and all these people that, that were just the bedrock of our community. And so to
my neighbor,
to help the current Lincoln students understand that there's
great.
a long history, I think that is such an important idea. And I'm so glad that you're working with the current principal and that he is this idea, because you're right. It's the history of Lincoln. And I remember, you know, when they named the new Lincoln High School, and there was like, what? So that
they
we
didn't like that, right?
Make this connection that I think that's very important. And thank you for bringing this up. And I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Great, as am I.
Yeah, well,
along with that little.
Go ahead, Ms. Bowen. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Along with that little piece of land that we've been, I almost said hounded about for the very longest time, but I think you know the portion that I'm talking about next to Lincoln there. So I'm done. Go ahead.
That was Miss Wood's old song. I've been trying to work deals with the city because the city owns the property right next to it, and maybe I can get that done.
Okay.
Once we get kids back in school, we'll circle back on that property.
Okay.
But we don't want it to fall. We just don't want it to fall into the wrong hands with people who don't have the right intentions, and the right intentions are making it a historical part or keeping it a historical part of this community. And Daryl, I just salute you. I mean, I'm right here on my wall. My dad's report card from Leon in 1960. My grandmother's report card from 1930. I'm a former history teacher.
That's great.
I applaud your effort. I do feel as though that people in the community, as Dean McAllister would say, felt some kind of way in the mid-'70s when they came out as the Trojans in green and gold and not the Tigers in the blue and white.
Exactly.
You know, in the past, Lincoln has worn blue and white at football games, and I know I've been to many a fish fry with those men, and they tell some great stories about about their times at Lincoln High School. So I'm all in to help in this endeavor, in this effort. So just let me know how we can help and be a part of this.
So,
great idea. Great idea. Yes.
All right. Thank you all. I just want to close. Mr. Superintendent, you have your report card on the wall too? Ms. Bowen moves we rise.
Yes, I do. Good night, all.
Good one. Last word. I like it.